I was 9 years old and I was just getting out of my Pokemon phase. But I had this sort of weird obsession. It was 2001 in Dublin, and what kept distracting me was this tiny orange box of pills that we kept in the kitchen drawer. They had this label that read, "For emergency use only, in the event of a nuclear accident." I kept thinking, what if my granny is here? See, I was the youngest and there's only 6 tablets, so was I going to lose out? It obviously never came to that, but as a kid I remember being obsessed with this idea that my nuclear doom was imminent. With the world in lockdown, I found myself back in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories. Yet it wasn't the pandemic that reminded me of this fear. It was Greta, or at least the protest that she inspired. The idea of 9 and 10-year-olds taking to the streets, holding signs proclaiming that if we don't act now, they won't have a future.
Because everybody would die and then everything would be left here and it'd get all like...
Jesus, Shawnee.
It could happen though. The world would explode.
No, that's only what happens when... No, that won't happen.
I knew that feeling. I'd had those apocalyptic thoughts 20 years ago. I used to watch the sunset from my bedroom window, but I wasn't watching for its beauty. I was on the lookout, waiting for a crack of white light, a rush of air, and a billowing mushroom cloud that confirmed the worst had happened. I was this 9-year-old kid in Dublin waiting for a nuclear holocaust. My memory is a little hazy, but my imagined ground zero is clear. It was called Sellafield, a British nuclear power site on the west coast of England. It was definitely around 2001 because I remember 9/11 at the same time. But 9/11 didn't seem real to me. New York was so far away, something in movies and on TV. Sellafield was different. It felt close. While the whole world was waiting for Osama bin Laden's next move, the attention in Ireland began to shift to a regional British nuclear power station. Stories began to spread in the news that it was vulnerable to attack, that a small plane could breach the nuclear reactor, and that the wind might blow the radioactive fallout across the Irish Sea and right into my bedroom window. It all began with this one radio interview and a government minister struggling to explain the plan in the event of a nuclear disaster.
Well, say it's a bad situation.
If it's a bad...
Say a plane crashed into Sellafield. Say the wind was blowing this way, and it all happened 8 minutes ago.
If a plane crashed in Sellafield, that is we're talking about a very major accident there.
Correct.
None of us will ever forget this day.
A great power like the United
Yet we go
States
forward to defend freedom
to cope with
and all that is.
last week.
But tell me what to do.
Well, I'm telling you what that.
You're going to give me the fact sheet in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll read it. But I'm talking out.
Looking back now, the more I uncover, the more I remember. It feels really stupid now, but I can feel those wandering thoughts. The anxious glance at the flat, grey sea, listening in bed trying to distinguish between the rumble of cars outside and the rumble of an incoming nuclear blast wave. And no one ever knew this. I kept it all to myself.
I don't know what I've kind of made up and what is actual memory.
Yeah, all the children in my school presumed that eventually there would be a terrible economy that would be wiped out. Nobody really talked about it after that.
I remember, I think, coming home from school one day and coming in the door and there was like this little plastic packet of like orange pills. And I was like, oh, it's in case there's a nuclear fallout.
The entire country was sent these pills to stop us absorbing deadly radiation. And I guess to make us feel safer. but it had the opposite effect for me. They were just a constant reminder of a looming danger.
So we got all these like postcards of this like irradiated landscape in Ireland. They're like bright purple kind of hills and all this kind of shit. And I think it was like "Wish You're Here" or "Greetings from Ireland" or something like that. And we sent them to number 10 Downing Street.
I've only got a vague memory of these postcards. I remember being scared, but laughing along with the jokes anyway. No one ever knew, not even my mum. Did you know I was scared about Sellafield?
I had absolutely no idea of it, no. No idea whatsoever.
Like, are you surprised?
Yeah, definitely. Because I wouldn't have realised that it would have impacted in that way. And I also wouldn't have realised that if it did, that you would have kind of kept it under wraps in the way you did.
Yeah. It's weird because everybody else remembers it, but it feels like we experienced different events.
I don't think we were actually scared. I don't think we cared at all. We just loved like the drama of it a bit.
Not at all. Nuclear wasteland and all that was kind of just a bit of crack, and I'm sure we played games about it.
I think I actually was scared, and I'm the only one I found. I definitely remember for a few months, like, genuinely waiting or imagining it happening, like, imminently.
When I write it all down, it makes sense that I was scared, right? The news, the pills, the postcards, everything was telling me to be terrified, that my world was in danger. Yet obviously nothing happened. Sellafield is still there. Those pills expired and they were never replaced. There was no conspiracy. The joke just went over my head. Maybe if I'd spoken about it, I'd have caught on, but I never did. And then eventually I forgot. But others weren't pretending, they just weren't scared. I've been wondering what stopped me from speaking out, and if there's anything I can learn about myself, or I guess human nature, from one 9-year-old's experience 20 years ago.
This memory came rushing back to me one day, and I was like, I couldn't remember exactly where it came from or why it happened to me, but I do remember being terrified. And I guess I want to know if it's normal.
I think it's quite common for children to be fearful of things, worried about the safety of others, especially their family members. In fact, I think a lot of what I'm hearing sounds like you also empathize a lot with what was going on. I mean, for all of us, we're all individuals and we don't know when certain experiences will really kind of stick with us. Could have just been the dramatics of it, of how it's being portrayed. You know, in many instances, children end up being a lot more vulnerable in that sense because they don't have perhaps the cognitive maturity yet to understand what exactly is going on. You know, your story to me sounds completely normal.
Do you sort of see any value in me looking back on my own past?
Yes. I was actually thinking when you were saying, oh, all your memories like flooding back, but that same thing happened to me when the pandemic hit. Because it was my memories of SARS when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And then that was flooding back.
It's reassuring to learn that I wasn't a complete freak, but it does make me wonder how many others are out there. Sometimes we don't even realize that we've never spoken our fears out loud. They can seem so trivial with the passage of time.
Until you started researching this, I didn't think my fear was in any way weird or unusual. I thought every child was terrified of pedophiles. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, this is great.
So I think I was about 8 years old, and my parents drove me and my sister to my grandparents' house to stay about a week or two during the summer holidays. I ended up watching the story of a girl who'd been kidnapped. It just unleashed something. It was like a compulsion almost to then consume everything I could about it. And it upset me so much and made me absolutely terrified. I became really homesick and my parents had to come and pick me and my sister up. I think I was just really aware that someone might try to abduct me, you know, on my way home from school. I was hyper aware that we were all in danger. Even today, everyone remembers that they had to come pick me up, but I don't think they grasped at the time or remember that that was the reason.
The Beslan school attack, as well as a string of other raids.
So like I was 12, becoming a teenager, where you're still little but not really. It was suddenly tied up with all those like hormonal angst, which is probably why it felt scarier than maybe if I'd seen it when I was 8. There was a Russian school siege called the Beslan school siege, and it completely terrified me. After seeing all the siege stuff on the news, then being in my own school assembly the next day, the idea that soldiers could suddenly appear at our assembly school doors seemed suddenly so real. We all suddenly felt very hemmed in. My brain suddenly went into overdrive. Plans went from sneaking out through one of the doors at the back to just full-on pelting through a window. This feeling of like, okay, well, I already look quite different anyway. I don't want to add to that. This girl has insane fears about like gunmen, you know, storming into the assembly hall. She's such a freak. I think you have such a desire to conform and be normal, and you do not want to be seen as others.
I watched it from start to finish, and the only reason was I was so scared of it that I was afraid to move. Her going down the stairs like a fucking spider, that put so much fear in me. And so that started years of nightmares. I would just have night terrors. I would be listening out for like creaks. If the devil was in the attic or the girl was in the attic, you know, it was just pure fear. So it was quite like embarrassing. My mum thought I was bullied. She kept on going to the school wondering like who's bullying Jack. There was like a change in my personality. So I kept that as my secret, and I never told anyone that I'd watched this horrific movie.
I guess I held on to this fear for quite a long time. Maybe even now sometimes. I mean, each time I go to the beach, I will have to have a thought about, okay, what do I do next in case a tsunami would happen? In 2004, I was spending Christmas with my family in the mountains. Found out about this catastrophic event that happened in Southeast Asia. I remember not spending any time outdoors. It was mainly sitting there listening to what had happened. It was like watching a movie or real weird entertainment. So I had a very vivid image of what would happen. Everything filled up with water. I would have prepared an entire escape plan. For me, it was something that could happen. It was possible. It was possible. The sea was, I can see the sea from where I live. Maybe my parents could have protected us a little bit more. But I guess that they had that weird obsession as well.
I thought, oh my God, maybe if I could build myself like a bomb shelter, I might survive this thing. The only problem was, you know, we'd have to be in it at the time for it to happen. And my uncle has an annual New Year's Eve party. So it's New Year's Eve, 1999. I'm absolutely terrified that the world is gonna end. My brother's deeply into conspiracy theories, and he finds out that the planets are gonna collide and the world's gonna end when the clock strikes 12. I start immediately building a bunker. I stop playing with my friends. I start to take life a little too seriously. I thought it would be like complete chaos and destruction. So it felt like this impeding thing that I just had to get in front of. We started to collect bricks from all the different skips, but because we didn't have enough brick, it literally was just like you kind of have to scoot in. It was really small and it made absolutely no sense. I was a bit disappointed actually that it didn't happen. This made me realize that the world is big, the world is scary. Sometimes you have to go through the pain to get to know who you really are. And it's not pain. Well, it is painful to at 9 to think you're gonna die. I don't wanna minimize how I felt at the time because I felt like everyone else would minimize it, which is probably why I didn't speak about it.
I remember having the thought, like, what if this building were to fall down? And I was like, don't think about that, because I was on the top of the building and I was like, if you think about that, it's gonna happen. I had been on a 5th grade field trip to the top of the World Trade Center in June. I mean, and even to this day, it's like so surreal. It was something that had never happened in history. And then right after I had that thought, it did. I think people didn't really know what they were supposed to censor at the time. And I remember there was a lot of stuff that I've never seen since that I'll never forget. It was really, really awful watching the footage of people jumping because I knew what it would feel like to be standing in the exact same spot where they were. I felt like I willed it to happen. Definitely at the time, that was the first thought I had. It was like, oh, this is my fault. For my whole childhood, I had this traumatic image of like the building falling on this lobby from the field trip that I had gone on in 5th grade. And then maybe 2 years ago, I came out of the subway and I was in the lobby that I had pictured in my mind. I had the wrong lobby. I don't think I told anyone the exact thought that I'm talking about right now, maybe even until now.
In some strange way, it's like we're back in 2001. The world is uncertain and scary, and we're not sure if we'll ever return to normal. I can't imagine being a kid right now.
The first day I heard about it, I was doing a poem in the Art Music Festival, and my mum told me I wasn't going back to school.
I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense, because I thought it was just like a flu or something, and then they were saying like you should stock up on food, don't like go out of your house, and I was like, what?
I remember the day when I heard that we were going to be off school for 2 weeks, and I thought 2 weeks was a really long time.
Like, if we go back to stage 1, how is my dad going to work? How are we going to like go with another homeschool?
Death and illness are a constant discussion, and we're all told, including children, that the safety of others is resting at our feet.
I knew what it was from China and all, but I never thought it would reach here.
It's like I kind of wish that that all the germs would just infect a different planet instead of ours.
It's mostly not good news. I remember one day there was no deaths and we were all really happy.
I'm trapped. Like, there's no way of escaping. Things are really tough.
I could spread it to Ruth, which might spread to my mom, which might spread to my dad, which might spread to my grandpa, which could kill him. So, like, I'm just really worried.
As scared as I was back then, I didn't know what an R number or ICU stood for, and I wasn't consulting a daily death toll. As much as we'd like to, we can't hide the truth. I realized recently that no one ever asked me, what are you scared of? This simple question might have made a huge difference. Everyone I've spoken to has gotten over their fears. But the catharsis and reflection that took 20 years and a short documentary to make might have had a shorter pathway back in 2001. Before we pack away our memories of the 21st century's first pandemic, maybe we should take some time to stop and talk about our fears. Otherwise, in 20 years, today's kids might find themselves like me, in a car driving the length of England, to stand on a golf course, staring at a very unimposing, non-threatening, decommissioning nuclear power site, and wondering, why was I ever so scared?